Strange little paradox here. We're going to be talking about a crime wave. I've once said that the Clinton administration is a crime wave in perpetual session. There has been a crime wave as well having to do with the pilferage of our national security secrets. If a beat cop patrolling a crime-prone neighborhood is discovered to have taken payoffs from the gangsters responsible for plundering the neighborhood, there are certain logical inferences that we can draw. We can draw the logical inference that he has been bought off and that he is no longer a law enforcement officer, he's an accomplice, which is to say he's a co-conspirator. We assert that Mr. Clinton, having received millions of dollars in campaign contributions from Red China at the time that this crime wave was going on, is a co-conspirator with Red China. As such, he is an enemy of our nation, by strict definition. He has chosen to do this in ways that have critically undermined our national security and tarnished the presidency. This is an unpalatable truth to be told to the American public, because when you start talking about the crimes committed by their president, that indicts the electorate. And so there's a natural tendency on the part of the electorate to flinch from these facts, because what we are saying is that on two separate occasions they had the opportunity to vote for this individual. They voted for him by pluralities, not by majorities, but by doing so, they elected an individual who is a criminal. This is not a popular message. We like to believe that the electorate, the sovereign electorate, is infallible. So it falls upon us to carry out the hard and unglamorous labor of informing them. How many people do you think in 1996, out of this electorate, which if properly informed will most of the time offer pretty good judgment, how many people do you think would have been interested in the endorsement that Bill Clinton's re-election got in August of 1996? We like your president. Who said this? Was it a labor leader? No. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. A politician? No. Was it a Hollywood celebrity? Not at all. It was Major General Xi Shangde, the head of Red China's military intelligence agency, that gave Mr. Clinton this unsolicited testimonial in August of 1996. He was speaking to Johnny Chung, who was one of the key human conduits through which Beijing pumped its illegal campaign contributions. We like your president. Well, from Beijing's perspective, what's not to like about Bill Clinton? What is there to like about Bill Clinton? Consider the headline that appeared in Newsweek on March 29, 1999. The penetration is total. The penetration being referred to was the penetration by Red Chinese espionage and military intelligence assets of our top secret weapons labs, such as Los Alamos. The Chinese penetration is total, said an official close to the investigation. They are deep, deep into the lab's black programs. Black programs are the top secret cutting-edge weapons research, such as, for instance, the neutron bomb, and also electromagnetic pulse technology. The EMP, that's the electromagnetic pulse, would be an airburst nuclear bomb that would be used to disable just about anything that depends upon computers. Now that takes in just about everything. The EMP would do what the Y2K problem would supposedly do, which is to say cripple all electronic and computer-dependent technologies within a certain crucial radius. This would be particularly useful when applied to high-tech, what they call C3 command, communications, and control military assets in the battlefield, whether you're talking about tanks, whether you're talking about missiles, whether you're talking about aircraft. An EMP could disable all of it. And of course, Red China's military doctrine depends in great measure upon the ability to incapacitate information warfare on the part of their most likely adversary, which is us. I had mentioned earlier that Mr. Clinton is in the habit of misplacing important things, such as the football carrying the nuclear launch codes. Newsweek reported something that we had heard last August. I'm quoting now from Newsweek. Beijing recently got hold of 2 U.S. cruise missiles that failed to detonate during last fall's retaliatory attack on terrorist Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. This is really interesting for a number of reasons. I would say the most interesting thing that we know here is that that attack on Afghanistan was launched as a transparent attempt to manipulate the timing of Bill Clinton's impeachment process. So you lob a couple of cruise missiles in Afghanistan, and China happens to end up with a couple of them, which of course they're now cannibalizing and using as a template for their own cruise missiles. That's a really interesting state of affairs. Was this a matter of misplacing something, or was it something more sinister? After we've evaluated the evidence this evening, you can draw your own conclusions. I have drawn my own, but I won't share them with you at this juncture. I quoted Sun Tzu earlier this evening. I will quote Sun Tzu again now to talk about the nature of Red Chinese espionage and the role that Bill Clinton has played in Red China's espionage during this decade. Sun Tzu referred to the 5 sorts of spies, and I quote, native spies, internal spies, double spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies. And Sun Tzu elaborated by saying as follows, native spies are those from the enemy's country people whom we employ. Johnny Chung would be a good example of that. He's an American citizen, naturalized American citizen. He would be a native spy. Internal spies are enemy officials whom we employ. Double spies are enemy spies whom we employ. Doomed spies are those of our own spies who are deliberately given false information and told to report it to the enemy. In other words, they're used for the purposes of disinformation. Surviving spies are those who return from the enemy camp to report information. When all these 5 types of spies are at work and their operations are clandestine, it is called the divine manipulation of threads, and it is the treasure of the sovereign. We contend that the communist Chinese applying these tactics have carried out a strategic coup of unprecedented magnitude by recruiting the President of the United States to serve as an internal spy, which by Sun Tzu's definition is an official of an enemy country who is employed by the spy master. We are not alone in that conclusion. Senator James Inhofe, Republican senator from Oklahoma, on March 15th of 1999, gave a dramatic speech on the floor of the Senate, portions of which I'd like to share with you now by way of giving an overview of much of what Mr. Clinton has managed to accomplish on behalf of Red China. I want you to listen. I'm going to tell you a story of espionage, conspiracy, deception, and cover-up, a story with life and death implications for millions of Americans, a story about national security and a president and an administration that deliberately chose to put national security at risk while telling the people that everything was fine. If it was written in a book, it wouldn't sell because no one would believe it. If it was fictionalized in a novel, few could conceive it, but it is true. And then Senator Inhofe began to enumerate some of the things that happened. During the period of 1995 to 1998, President Clinton, quote, misled the American people on numerous occasions about the threat posed by strategic nuclear missiles. During this period, President Clinton made statements on over 130 separate occasions, such as the following, quote, for the first time since the dawn of the nuclear age, there is not a single solitary nuclear missile pointed at an American child tonight. Not one. Not a single one. Parenthetically, one of the most tiresome things about Mr. Clinton is the way that he always uses children as a rhetorical human shield. Every single thing he ever does, from launching a war against Yugoslavia to promoting abortion, he justifies in the name of the children. And here, of course, we have him talking about how Red China, with malicious premeditation, was pointing nuclear missiles specifically at American children. But of course, it was no longer happening, according to what Mr. Clinton said. During this period of time, said Senator Inhofe, he knew that China was targeting up to 18 intercontinental ballistic missiles at American children. During this period of time, President Clinton signed export control waivers, which allowed his top campaign fundraiser's aerospace company to transfer sensitive U.S. missile guidance technology to China. During this period of time, he shifted the prime satellite export responsibility from the State Department to the Commerce Department, making it easier for China and others to get sensitive military-related U.S. technology. During this period of time, John Huang, Charlie Tree, Johnny Chung, James Riotti, and others with strong ties to China were deeply involved with the president's knowledge in raising Chinese tainted campaign cash for the Clinton campaign. During this period of time, John Huang, who had been given a security clearance without a background check, was permitted to receive numerous classified CIA briefings both during and after his stay at the Commerce Department. And during this period of time, President Clinton was successfully stopping the deployment of a national missile defense system, exposing every American life to a missile attack, leaving us with no defense against an intercontinental ballistic missile. This is why the head of Red China's military intelligence says that we like your president. But to continue the Bill of Particulars, why is this a matter of life and death significance for every American? Because now Red China has, for the first time in its history, the means and the capacity to target the U.S. mainland, every city in the U.S. mainland, with ballistic missiles bearing independently targeted nuclear warheads. And by the way, I would contend that this alone would explain why Red China would say that it likes Bill Clinton. That is a capacity they had not previously enjoyed. Beijing has received Bill Clinton's personal intervention on behalf of the planned lease of the Long Beach Naval Yards to COSCO. Most of you, I would wager, are aware of COSCO and understand what COSCO signifies, the China Ocean Shipping Company, the merchant marine of Red China's so-called People's Liberation Army. COSCO, of course, is not simply a shipping facility. It is involved in smuggling and in espionage and in narcotics trafficking and in all manner of untoward activities. Long Beach was ideally suited as a port of call for Red Chinese agents of all varieties. The COSCO deal has been held in abeyance because of congressional intervention. However, more recently we have discovered that a land swap is underway in which Los Angeles would pick up the contract so that COSCO could use port facilities in Los Angeles. And as we will describe a little bit later, COSCO is now establishing a beachhead on behalf of the Red Chinese at the anchor ports that guard the access to the Panama Canal. And this has happened on Bill Clinton's watch. Remember once again the image of the corrupt cop on the beat while a crime wave is taking place. If Mr. Clinton was unaware of this, he would still be culpable. But when the cop is receiving payoffs and looking the other way, it doesn't matter if he specifically knows what's going on, he's still a co-conspirator as far as the law is concerned. Beijing's military has had access to sophisticated military application satellite encryption technology that is so restricted that our allies don't have access to it. We'll talk about that in just a second. Red China is our chief military rival in the Pacific. It's a power whose military leaders explicitly refer to us as their chief adversary. Yet it has been embraced by the Clinton administration as a strategic partner. And the two military leaders most directly implicated in the Tiananmen Square massacre have been drawn to the bosom of our military and diplomatic establishment on the watch of the Clinton administration. This is another reason why Red China likes Bill Clinton. Beijing has also benefited from Mr. Clinton's dereliction of duty in enforcing laws intended to discourage the proliferation of what is now called weapons of mass destruction. These, of course, are invoked anytime we're urged to undertake an arms control agreement or anytime some remarkable imposition is being made on us in terms of our national sovereignty. We have to fight weapons of mass destruction, which are being giddily proliferated by Red China with the knowing acquiescence of Bill Clinton. This is something that I find very disturbing. During a speech in Shanghai during the 1998 summit in China, the Bill Clinton-Jiang Zemin summit that was more of a grovel fest than a diplomatic meeting, Bill Clinton publicly adopted Mao Zedong's formula for China's reconquest of Taiwan. Bear in mind that we have gone to war, we've intervened in a civil war to bring about the independence of Kosovo from Yugoslavia. But we see here where Mr. Clinton is adopting Mao Zedong's dictum that Taiwan should be reunified with Red China. It's really an interesting contradiction. And we'll talk a little bit about that in just a second. The United States, under Mr. Clinton's watch, has acquiesced as Beijing expands its military presence in the Pacific, specifically threatening a strategically significant and energy-rich archipelago of islands in the territorial waters of the Philippines. It is not well understood right now that China is, in essence, invading the territory of the Philippines. And it is doing so under the very nose of the United States, I contend, because the chief cop has been bought off.